What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to go over what it takes to actually live off of your dividends. You always hear people saying that that's the goal. You want to be able to retire and just live off your dividends in the future. But what does that mean, and what does it actually take to do it? When you look at even a dividend ETF like the SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, it gives a phenomenal return, 3.71%. So that means for every share that you own, you are making $2.62 a year. Now, this is the one thing that catches people off guard. They think, how could this even work? I'm only going to make $2.62 a year. I can't even buy lunch. I can't even buy breakfast with that. That's absolutely nothing. But it has to do with the amount of shares. So if you have one share, $70 worth of this ETF, you will make $2.62 in a year. And you can actually see right here, it's broken up by quarter. One quarter you get 65 cents, then 66, then 59. But if you own 10 shares, this $2.62 turns into $26.20. 100 shares, $262, and then it keeps on going and going. The more shares you have, or the more money you have in the ETF, the more money you will make. Now, that sounds long and boring and time consuming, but that is investing. It is boring and time consuming, as in not taking time away from you, but just time in the market. This isn't overnight or 1 week or 1 year strategy, not even a decade long strategy. This is several decades. And perfect example, I want to shout out Gen X Dividend Investor. This guy did it. He was able to retire in his 40s. He actually recently did a video. It was a really good video of his entire portfolio. It's one of these videos, but he built up a portfolio of $2.8 million. He's making, right here, he's making $100,000 a year in dividends. It didn't take him a couple of weeks to do. It took him, you could see right here, 30 years worth of investing. But he started early, so he was able to retire in his 40s. Not many people could say this. So I'd highly recommend checking out his channel. He's got some great content. But now that we kind of understand that, you may wonder, okay, fine. I know it's going to take a while, but exactly how much money do I need to invest in? You need to kind of go in with a game plan. You can't just think, I'm just going to keep throwing money at the market and see what happens. That will work if you throw enough money into the right places, and it's really not that difficult to do. But it is nice to have a game plan. You want to know if you're actually investing enough. So you got to start somewhere. We're going to look at, this is the example I'm going to use. Just what is the average person that's retired? What are they living off of a year? And you can see right here, they're living off of $52,000 a year or $4,300 a month. So this is our goal. How can we have dividends paying us $52,000 a year? It's simple math. So we got to pull out a calculator. And here's what you do. We're going to take the $52,141, and then we're going to divide it by whatever dividend we're getting. So a person will try to aim for 4%, but sometimes that's not always the case. If you want to strictly live off of your dividends and not have to touch your principal at all, we got to look at the dividend yield. So you can see right here, if I were to put all my money into the Charles Schwab ETF, I'd be making 3.71% dividend yield. So we'll use that as an example for now. So we're going to take 52,141. We're going to divide that by 0.0371 and hit equals. There is our magic number, $1.4 million. That will get us $52,000 a year. And the math kind of checks out because my friend over here has $100,000 a year in dividends, and his portfolio is $2.8 million. So pretty much double what this hypothetical example is. So he's living a good life, and it definitely worked out for him. But what's involved to get to $1.4 million? You can't save your way to $1.4 million. So how much do you need to invest each and every month? Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. We pull out an investment calculator. Now, again, we're just going to do a generic example. Let's say you're 35 years old and you want to retire at 65. So you got 30 years worth of investing. Again, maybe you're watching it and you're 20 and you're a little bit more fortunate, so that means you got to invest less money. Maybe you want to retire early, so you need to be more aggressive, or maybe you're a little late to the game, but that's okay. Just means you got to be a little bit more aggressive with it. So what you want to do is we're going to go to additional contribution right here. We're going to put in our magic number, which was it 1.4. Copy this. All right, so there we go. There's our magic number, $1.4 million. Starting amount, let's say you have $0, and I said 30 years to retirement. I like to be conservative with the rate of return. People say, well, you can make 10%, but you need to account for inflation. The US government likes inflation around 2%, but I think we all know that inflation is not 2% over the past couple of years. So we're going to say inflation is going to be sitting around 3% on average over the course of the next 30 years. And if we could confidently get 10%, that's typically what people will say. The market could return 10% minus the 3% inflation. We're hitting a nice conservative 7% rate of return. And then we're going to hit calculate. Here's how much we need to invest each month, $1,200. That may shock you as in it's a scary number, or it may shock you as in it's a lot less than you thought. But that's essentially what this hypothetical person would need to invest over the next 30 years. That's every single month, $1,200 a month. And then you could see over those 30 years, he contributed or she contributed $400,000 or $432,000 and made on top of that the interest or the returns $972,000. That's how we get to our 1.4 million. And then with that, we'll be getting that 3.71% return. Or if we really want to break down the math, if we're using this Charles Schwab ETF example, so $70.62, how many shares would we actually have? So let's divide this by 70.62, hit equals. We'd have 19,900 shares, just shy of 20,000 shares. 20,000 shares paying us $2.62 a year, where we could see the most recent dividend payment, which was right here. So there's that 19,000. Let's multiply that by the recent cash payout, which was 65 cents. So 0.6545, hit equals. We would have got $13,000 right into our brokerage account that we then could have converted over to our bank account and then use that. Again, it would be a quarterly payout. So we'd get around $13,000 4 times a year, which brings it to that $52,000. Our friend Gen X over here, he's making double that. So if he's getting paid quarterly, let's multiply that by 2. He's getting around $26,000 a quarter, or if we then multiply that by 4, that's around his $100,000, which he's making. But these are just our examples that I used here. What you could do is you can mess around with the calculator. You can mess around with how much money you actually want in retirement. If you want $100,000, we can see the numbers are going to look a little different. We just take that 100,000, divide that by 0.0371. That is with this ETF. If you're picking a different ETF, the dividend may be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And then we hit equals. You can see we need 2.6 million for this. And then we could update this, and this will pretty much be double. Instead of $1,200, we're going to be looking at around $2,400 a month to get to our benchmark. And obviously, if you have money already in the stock market, that will help. Like, let's say you already have $100,000. Let's see how that would change things. Look at that. That would be a lot easier to do compared to $1,200. Less than half, only $550,000 a month for the next 30 years to get to that goal. It may not be 30, it may be 20. But one thing I would say to keep you on track, because that's another thing. It's hard for people to stay on track just because at first it's so little. You're hardly making any money. $2.62 a year per share. You need to take small goals. Don't look at the end goal. I want to have $100,000 a year in dividends in retirement, or 52,000, whatever it might be. Look at the small goals first. I want to make enough money in dividends to pay for my Netflix subscription. That's what, $15? So how many shares is that? Do 15 divided by 2 point, here, we'll do it right now. So clear, 15 divided by 2.62. If we do the Schwab ETF, I need 5 shares, 5.7 shares. We'll call it 6 shares. 6 times $70, $420. So if you were to stick to some type of plan, the first month you'd already be covering your Netflix you'd already be covering 1 month's worth of Netflix subscription. Obviously, it's over the years, so 15 times 12. That may be your next goal. You want to make $180 in dividends. So you take these small goals, $180 a year. If we divide that by the 2.62 example, all right, we need 68 shares times $70 per share, so a little under $5,000. Then maybe it's your car payment, and that's going to be whatever, $200, $300, $400. That's going to be your next milestone. Go from for that 4,000 to 10,000 or 12,000. And the next thing you know, all these are going to start adding up, where your Netflix is paid for, your car payment is paid for, you having all these small milestones, and then it's just a snowball effect. Next thing you know you're going to be making enough in dividends to maybe cover your mortgage. And that may be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. But all these small victories will add up to the end goal of having a portfolio that's over $1 million or over $2 million. And the dividends that you're getting are substantial. $100,000, maybe even more than $100,000. But this is the roadmap. It is long and boring, and there's really not much to it. I was able to sum it all up in this video, but this is what you have to do. The next step now, if you're completely new to this, is check out one of my other videos on how to open up a brokerage account and get started that way. But guys, if you like this video, make sure to smash that like button, and as always, I will see you in the next one.